All right, today we're going to do a quick tutorial on Kaito. Kaito, who knows how it's pronounced? I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know. It is the ultimate Web3 information platform, but it is quite pricey. So today I'm going to go through what I use it for, who I think it's good for, and whether you should buy it. And hey, I'll even give you some options, so stick around to the end. If you're not willing to pay for it, there's some free options. Highly recommend this. All right, so let's go quick into the platform. This is pretty much your centralized dashboard where you can see all the things going down in Twitter. It seems like the main use case for Kaito is to just see everything that's going on in Twitter. We all know essentially crypto is run by kind of elite opinion amongst the people that are in the know. Most people, we would call it copy trading, look at somebody that's doing really well, wallets that are doing really well, and they just completely copy the trades there. So I look at Kaito as a great way to kind of get the vibe of Twitter, so to speak. So we can see right here from the beginning, we've got token mindshare, narrative mindshare, Twitter feeds. Truthfully, I don't spend the most time here, but I like that you can see the general market sentiment. And of course, you can get this from other sites, but I think they do a really good job of like kind of gauging where Twitter's at specifically. And then there's a few things that I don't use all that much. We can see like the watch feed. So let's say we wanted to come in here and we wanted to look at several different projects. So let's call it like L2Beat. And we want to see how Optimism's doing. Optimism. We want to see how our friends at Arbitrum are doing. And we want to see our friends at Base. All right. We really got the trifecta. Where the heck? Oh, there's Base. There we go. Hey, Base God. Nice. All right, so now we've got our cool L2Beat list that we can see kind of things that are going on in the world. We can see like the general mind share that's happening right now. We can kind of see who's on the rise, who's kind of on the decline. It seems like, Arbitrum has a bit more volatility. Base seems to be really trending. And a really great tool here is we can find out like, hey, why do we think Base or why do we think Arbitrum is trending in this given moment? So this leads me to my favorite tool here. It is the meta search. So let's imagine we're going to be creating a report. We're going to be either some kind of outside consultant or we're a CMO or we're some kind of marketing agency that is coming to, let's use Arbitrum as an example, coming to Arbitrum and we're like, hey, we're from the outside looking in, kind of trying to get an idea of the current market sentiment for you guys. So we can see all of the mentions that they're getting on Twitter. We can see all the mentions that they're getting on Farcaster. Honestly, nothing has made me more bearish on Farcaster than looking at this delta. Like if I was the CEO of Farcaster, maybe they, I don't know, in decentralized land, maybe it's like a core contributor or something, but whatever. If I was the CEO of Farcaster, I'd have the delta between these two numbers on a dashboard every single day. I'm like, how do we get the Farcaster numbers up? Now, it's possible that Kaito doesn't have as good of hooks into Farcaster. Completely speculating. Maybe it's the greatest thing in the world. But if I was, making a Farcaster strategy, I would really worry about this number and I would hope that it's not accurate. But if it is accurate, I would probably be neglecting Farcaster. And that's why I don't include it in plans for my clients. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. All right, so we can see governance. We can see all different kinds of mentions. Were they in the news? Were they in Twitter Spaces? Were they in podcasts? I think one thing to note is not all podcasts are included here. So I think they probably have the best data on Twitter and Discord, but not everything you want is going to be in this tool. So let's get back to the Arbitrum example. Let's say you're either doing like KOL management, you're some kind of marketing manager, or you're a consultant. We want to see the sentiment and mindshare. And one thing that I really love here is, let's say we had a period of like relatively like not negative sentiment, because you would see it actually be red. If we pull up another project, and I'll do that right after, we can see kind of some general ideas as to like, hey, why it experienced low sentiment in this particular time. I think that's super helpful. And then we can also see the amount of, mind share and mention. So this is more the sentiment. This is more the mind share on the bottom. And then they're also graphing the price. I don't see a huge correlation. I mean, maybe you could say like, hey, there's been a drop off in mind share and the price has been a little lower as a result. I don't know. Maybe. You'd have to probably dig into the data a little bit more here. But one thing I really like, so let's say we're going to look at the last 3 months and we're going to look at, a TLDR, and we're going to let Kaito's great AI platform kind of give us an analysis of where it sees, Arbitrum at this given moment. And before we do that real quick, I want to show you these document mentions. I think this is super important, and I'll come back to this later as you can compare projects with it. So if I click into this TLDR, it's going to, I assume, use some kind of AI, LLM. It's going to generate a report like on the recent news kind of what people are thinking about in the space. And the other thing that I really like is like, let's say you read a report, in the news, you expect it to be citation. So you're like, okay, well, where is Kaito? Where are they getting this information? So we can see like, hey, people are relatively bearish towards Arbitrum. I tend to disagree with that, but let's see, like maybe we have the wrong read on the market. So what we do is we can come in here and we can click in and we can see different tweets that may have had like a bearish sentiment or may have had a positive sentiment. We can kind of start to form our own opinion. They're giving us a good idea, but we can come in here, we can see, hey, what are all the bullish people saying? And we can come in here, click through those. We say, hey, what are all the bearish people saying? And it will give us a good understanding, kind of a balanced understanding of what's going on for a particular project. So if we need to make a recommendation, we can quite easily do that without having to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on research. The other thing that's quite nice is looking at the total document mentions. So you can see here, you can say, hey, it's how many times they've been mentioned. You can see total engagement and then smart engagement. And this is one of the most important things that Kaito unlocks is smart engagement. It's like, hey, if we're getting, this is a common thing in the industry, brand accounts are getting tons and tons of traffic, but it's mostly like airdrop hunters and it's kind of fake engagement. We all kind of know it. So Kaito did a great thing is they're like, hey, we know there's a bunch of fake engagement out here. So what we're going to do is we're going to target the people that are like kind of in the know in Cryptolandia. And we're going to actually split out their engagement sector. So like, hey, you can see the total engagement here, right? But we have this separate section, which is like, hey, how many like intelligent people, how many like non-NPC bots are talking about you, So this is a very interesting area, and I highly recommend looking for it. So if you see like a huge delta between those two values, you're like, hey, how do we get more people, smart people talking about us? Let's look at another project like Eclipse, I think is a very interesting one to look at. So if we can come in here, we can see they're doing really well on Twitter. They've got this positive mind share. I think most people probably know what this negative event was, so I won't click into it. But you could see like, hey, you can have periods where there's a slightly bearish sentiment, and you can see that this company or this mind share sentiment is definitely on the rise. Like look at how few mentions, and now look how much they were doing at this given time. So it's quite interesting to look at these companies. They're essentially not just doing founder-led marketing because maybe their founder isn't around, but are doing, we would even call it like, I'll call it like decentralized yapper strategy or team engagement strategy or executive strategy. So I think it's a quite interesting thing. So some of the things that I pull for clients, and I think there's quite interesting, is looking at your competitors or looking at, peer companies. And I'm not saying all of these are competitors, of course, but I'm saying you can derive insights from being like, okay, Arbitrum's smart engagement is lower than Base's. It's like if I'm the marketing manager there, I'm thinking about how can I get my smart engagement up. If I'm looking at Solana versus Base, I'm like, holy heck, Solana has so many people talking about it. And then maybe I'm looking at some incumbents, or sorry, not some incumbents. Maybe I'm looking at some new entrants. Maybe I'm very curious about like Monad strategy or Eclipse that we just looked at. So we can look at all of those different document mentions. I hadn't found a good way to compare all of the different companies. So, the Kaito team, reach out to me if I missed that, but I think that's an interesting thing. And then you can start to derive insights from it. So you're like, okay, well, we just saw that Eclipse has this kind of like decentralized yapper strategy where they don't necessarily have, the founder around. So they're having all different people on their team start to tweet. They have this uniform branding. And you're like, okay, well, maybe we can derive some information from that. Some other things that I think are really interesting are taking the narrative mindshare. So let's say you're an up-and-coming project and you're focused on AI. You can see, hey, you're going to be riding a humongous AI wave. But one problem is everyone's talking about AI. So when everyone's talking about AI, it's really difficult to stand out from the crowd. So one thing somebody might do is they might go to like the top 11 to 27 and they might see, So we can target trusted execution environments and we'd be like, hey, how can we be the trusted execution environment person and then sprinkle in the AI so we're essentially hitting both. One person I saw do this really well is we can go into a smart following. I'm trying to remember. So essentially we're looking at Tabasco, and this was a very interesting guy. You can see like he's had such a steady increase in smart followers, and smart followers are similar to smart engagement. It's like how many people on the inside of crypto Twitter, how many people in the know are following you, and you can kind of track your growth. So let's say you're a ghostwriter or you're doing this founder-led marketing, you're a marketing expert, and you're like, hey, I want to make sure that my founder is consistently getting new followers. I want him to be in the inner circle of crypto Twitter. I'm personally still on the emerging crypto Twitter. So you can kind of also gauge yourself. But coming back to Tabasco, one thing he did really, really well, and I wish it would show this, but if I go to maybe KOL Mindshare and I search for Tabasco, I'm hoping it will show that he talks a lot about chain abstraction. Unfortunately, I don't see a way to do it, but I'm sure it exists, so check it out. Some people are better at this than me. Another thing you can look at is the different narratives gaining traction. So maybe you're looking at starting a company, you're like, okay, what do I think is going to be big? Or like, hey, what do I think is not being looked at right now, but they could be big in a year. So if I want to build a startup and I need time to accumulate capital and start building, maybe that's something to look at. KOL Mindshare, let's say you have a ZK project and you're like, hey, I have these funds, I need people to be talking about my project. Then you can search for some of the top 10 here. Let's say I'm ZK Sync and I'm really interested in ZK. One, I want to find people posting about ZK, of course. And two, I want to find people that are posting about my project, because it's, at KOL and Management, a lot of stuff you might have to pay for posts, things of that nature. Everyone knows this, but you might find some emerging up and coming stars that are already posting about your project, are already interested, and they would just love to be invited to a Telegram group full of great people. One company that I feel like did this really well is like Monad. They had their different like Discords gated, they had their different Telegrams, and they were able to build a really interesting community of people that were highly focused on this. So let's say you wanted to reverse engineer, say, the Monad strategy. Kaito would be a great tool in order to do that, because you could kind of find people that are already talking about the things you want to. Chain abstraction, finally. So if I want to look at Tabasco, I'd say probably like every 1 to 2 tweets of his is going to be focused on chain abstraction. So if you're like, hey, maybe I'm a relatively new entrant, or hey, maybe my founder historically hasn't been posting, but we want to try to target a specific narrative, and maybe AI is like, too saturated. Maybe too many people are talking about AI. Maybe we can be like a Tabasco, and maybe we can dominate something like chain abstraction and really create content around there. So who do I think this tool is good for? I think it's good for marketing managers. I think it's good for consultants. I think it's good for ghostwriters in certain respects. Probably depends on how big your agency is. Anyone that's trying to do founder-led marketing or some kind of decentralized Yapper strategy. If you are a CMO and you're trying to be like, hey, why is Base being so successful? And you're trying to reverse engineer some tactics and some theories. You want to contact KOLs. You're doing KOL management. All of these people, I think, Kaito is really good for. And if you're like, hey, the price is a little too high for me, I highly recommend you can go into their section called Yaps. They have some, crypto Twitter leaderboards that you can kind of get a feel. You can get a lot of value out of here. It's not all the value. There's so much behind the paywall, but it's a good understanding of like, hey, what's going on in crypto Twitter? Why is like, hey, an AI agent is the #1 yapper. That's crazy. Hey, Jesse, maybe even just want some people to follow here. So you can get a lot of value just from the free stuff that they're putting out, ranking the different AI agents. You can come in here, you can create a social card. And this is all free, by the way. So you can see like, hey, I'm emerging crypto Twitter. I got 152 smart followers. I'm in the top 10% of crypto Twitter. So let's say you're doing a ghostwriting agency or doing founder-led marketing. You're like, Kaito, it's a little too expensive for me. You could say, hey, let's at least get a feel for where our founder or where our executives are on the crypto Twitter smart following. Let's kind of understand about where we're going. And let's say we track this like 152 followers and we're like, hey, by the end of the month, I want to be at 200 smart followers. That's like a measurable KPI that you can use, and it's free. So I think it's a really good tool. I highly recommend it. I think the team is producing a lot of different things. So this video might be outdated in the next 3 months. So keep in touch. I'm going to try to create more videos on Kaito and how I personally use it for our clients. If you're interested in KOL management, ghostwriting, services like that to help grow your mind share in the crypto community, reach out to me, shoot me a DM, and I'm always happy to help.